Okay, so this is the January 27th, 2025 meeting of the East Norwalk Neighborhood Association. My name is Diane Cece. I'm on the board. We also have board member George Hensinger with us, and looking at my boxes here, and advisory member Charles D. Bisegli. And I think that's it for right now. Just to quickly run through the agenda, we have a couple of announcements tonight. Tomorrow evening, Tuesday the 28th at 6:30, Mayor Harry Rilling will be presenting his 2025 State of the City address. That will be held in the City Hall Council chambers, but it also is being live streamed on the city's YouTube channel. So if you just go to YouTube and put in City of Norwalk, you'll get to their channel there, and you'll be able to watch that live. And it's also, of course, recorded for YouTube, so you can watch it at a later date if you'd like. And then another one of interest this week is on the 30th, the long-awaited draft of the Affordable Housing Action Plan is being presented and discussed at this is at a joint meeting of the Common Council and the Planning and Zoning Commission. This particular meeting is via Zoom only. I did see in the agenda that it includes public comment at the beginning of the meeting, which is pretty typical for the council. And they do have, it says a discussion in Q&A, but I believe that the Q&A is simply for the members of the Common Council to have a dialogue and Q&A with staff, but I'll try to get more clarification on that. The link to that was in our prior email, and if I get a chance, I'll send out another link, but we always encourage you, because things change, always go to the city's website under meeting notices, the latest time and venue, etc., and agendas. Okay, so that's it on what's coming up this week. We'll keep an eye on the city action, and then get back to posting via email so that you can keep an eye on things as well. Okay, and I don't know if we have Charles, has Kadeem or Kadeem Roberts or Dominique Johnson come on yet?
I'm not saying that.
Okay. All right. I did tell them that we normally have a little bit of business at the beginning so that they could feel free to hop on around 10 after or so. In the meantime, then I'll go ahead and I'll jump ahead to current some of the current businesses. As usual, our planning and zoning watch list for demolitions, permits, rezoning, anything that really impacts land use over here in East Norwalk. The one of the things that we're looking into right now is an application for a partial demolition of 16 Cottage Street. Some of you may recall that Cottage Street was one of the ones that was left as upzoning, for lack of a better term, that allows to go from 2.5 stories to 3.5 stories and increase density. I got a chance to go over to P&Z today and take a look at these plans, and the structure itself, which, by the way, the city lists the structure as being built in 1865. So this is definitely a structure that can be considered under the 50-year rule, obviously, to request a demolition delay. But we can talk more about that later. The plans look like what they plan to do. The owners plan to keep this as a rental property. They would be converting from 2.5 story 2-family to a 3.5 story 4-family. And the way that the plans are laid out is that they're going to take the existing structure and increase that footprint from 2.5 to 3.5 stories. But then they're putting on 2 additions to that structure that will be new footprints in the front and to the rear of the building that will also be 3.5 story structures. And it will bring the entire unit to full 4-family on that property. Obviously, the setbacks are being squeezed in. They are maintaining a 10-foot driveway, and they do have accommodations to meet the minimum parking requirement. On a four family unit, the minimum requirement is 6 parking spaces, and they'll be accommodating those on site. Any overflow parking, based on 2 families and visitors, etc., would obviously impact Cottage Street. So we are a bit concerned about that. Also, the taking up more of the footprint on the property, and also the height, we think, is going to be another structure that's going to be looming and certainly impact the 3 abutting neighbors that are there. This particular application was not brought to your attention because under the new zoning regulations, this type of a renovation and addition does not require a special permit anymore. It simply requires a site plan review by the city planning and zoning staff. Once they determine that the application meets all the technical regulations of the particular zone, then it gets approved, and it goes through. It gets approved, and then it just gets permitted over through the building department. So there is a pending demolition permit. Or intent to demolish. The permit we expect will be applied for shortly, and it mainly will be some interior demolition and also some exterior walls to accommodate for the new portions that are being added on. Because this structure is an 1865 structure, if a demolition delay request does get submitted to the city, the historical commission will examine to see whether or not this particular parcel has any historical significance. And ENNA has advised the neighbors there to also seek out some expert opinion from the preservationists in Norwalk, lend some advice on the status of that parcel. The other item on the P&Z watch list is one we've been looking at for a while. You guys hear us refer to this as the Jimmy's Deli site. It's actually 2 connected parcels. The parcel that the deli sat on at 65 Van Zandt Street, and then the rear of that parcel that came through their driveway out to Rowan is the parcel called 28 Rowan. For all intent and purposes, those 2 parcels are combined still, and the developer has put in an application under the East Avenue Village Transit Zone, which you know as EVTZ. They are requesting to build a 22-unit, 3.5-story complex. It would be under special permit because it's in the because of the zone that it's in, and because the 22 units requires them to provide those infamous public amenity bonus points. So more on that to come. We'll send out some emails on that as well. As it stands right now, we're planning and zoning. Even though the application has been filed and date stamped in the zoning office, staff considers it an incomplete application because it doesn't have all the documents that are required to put in a full application, such as their drainage report, their traffic study, and there are a few other documents that need to accompany it. The applicant is aware of that, so is their architect. We understand that if they do have an attorney representing them for this land use application, they have not identified who he or she is at this point. Another note on 65 Van Zandt, for those of you who are following it, they are still in violation of at least one zoning code, which is they illegally are still storing construction equipment on that site. Which is unsightly and not safe. And also the site is basically a dump at this point. there is a hearing before the violations hearing officer this Wednesday, the 30th, the 29th, I'm sorry, at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. The applicant would presumably appear and make his case, and it goes before the hearing officer to determine what, if any, violations will be kept in place, and whether or not they're going to start issuing daily fines until he moves that equipment out of there and cleans it up. Okay, so that's where we are with that. And if we have, Charles, do we have Representatives Johnson and?
Yes, Dominique has joined us.
Good evening, everybody. Nice to see you. I know I have just a sliver of ENNA, but also, I know you all do a lot of work with the City Hall Neighborhood Association, so happy to be here. And for those constituents, I'm over by Norden and everything, so I'm happy to represent. Kadeem's coming to answer your question. There's a double duty meeting tonight with Norwalk DTC, so I'm assuming he's just hopping over as he can.
Got you.
Yeah.
So, got you. Thank you. We appreciate your time tonight, knowing that's a conflict with on this Monday. I think with you guys because of the holiday as well. So we can go ahead and jump in if you want. I just wanted to do an introduction here. I do have your bio up here. If you want to walk through some stuff yourself, Dominique, or I can do it. I've made some highlights here.
Oh, I'm happy to mention a couple of things if you like.
Go ahead.
Oh, great.
Yep. And so, first of all, let me say welcome to State Representative Dominique Johnson of the Fighting 140. Are you 143rd? Right.
143rd. That's right.
There you go. Which I know long ago. I'll date myself, but used to say the fighting to Gail Lavielle at one time too. So who I think had those shoes.
Sales district. Yeah.
So go ahead if you want to just highlight some of this for folks who may or may not know you. And I also do have a little map I can bring up to show the sliver of kind of our portion of the thing.
Yeah, that would be so helpful because Diane, you and I went across, looked at the maps, and it was clear we were trying to figure out where, who did what because, these were redistricted 2 years ago. So the 143rd used to be different than it is now. So it's a Norwalk majority Norwalk, a little bit of Westport district now. So you'll see kind of my part of the 143rd is Norden Place, Pequot Trail, a little bit down there below 136, but and then anything north of 95 on the east side of East Avenue, right? So,
and I'll just say I didn't go all the way up the map because I really wanted to hone in on the portion of East Norwalk, but we do have a lot of people who participate that are in the 06851. So we just wanted to let them know that this gray area for the 123rd goes way up to where do you actually stop going up? Is it Cranberry?
Yep. So I live in Cranberry, and you are right. I am Wolf Pit and Cranberry's state rep for the entire neighborhoods up there. I go all the way up to the border of Wilton Westport up there.
Perfect.
So, and it's literally 06851 are my people, generally speaking. Yeah.
Right.
So, but I'm proud to say that I was just promoted. No pressure, but I'm now a deputy majority leader and I'm screening chair. So I will literally read every bill is my goal, making sure we make good progress for the state. I'm going to work very closely with my Republican colleagues across the aisle to make sure we run bills that will benefit us as a state. And we also have some priority bills coming through in our caucus, which I'm happy to talk about tonight. This is my second term, so I'm really honored to be doing this work this early for Norwalk and Westport. But for Norwalk in particular, I'm really happy the district is the way it is because I think we have a good seat at the table with this district, with this particular redistricting. We don't have necessarily, the interests of three towns that we're trying to negotiate. We have like 85% Norwalk, 15% Westport. And the neighborhoods, as you all know, where I live, a lot of these issues remain the same about making sure we have good quality of life for our families. That we have, like I said, I really want to be able to give back, especially so the next generation Norwalkers can have their dreams met here. So, that means having a lot of resources available for our young people, but making sure that our families can afford to still live in Norwalk and make sure that there's a bunch of different options that we can offer for them. Most of my district as you probably all know, is mainly single family housing. Um, and so it's a really great district. I really enjoy serving it, and of course it's my home, so I'm a little biased, but I know from serving on the council at large, I represented everybody in ENNA for about 3 years, and so it's nice to be back and to kind of I know that there will be a lot of things I think that we can have conversations about that affect south of 95 as well as north.
Thank you so much,
Well,
Dominique. And then I just want to clarify too now then if the because I took the bios off of the state website.
oh yeah,
And so the committees and everything that you're on are accurate now, the
oh yes,
judiciary,
oh yeah, and my
administration. Okay.
that's right. Those are my committees and my little promotion situations there too. So uh, it's a big deal. So it also gives me a chance to have a real voice for us. So if there are things that you're seeing about legislation, please reach out because I'm happy to amplify your concerns at the state level, especially in my new role. So yeah, those are my committees.
Great.
Um, Judiciary
Thanks.
and is one that I've stayed on. These two others are new for me, and I'm glad to be on them.
Okay. Thank
Yeah,
you so much. I
welcome.
think is Representative Roberts on now?
Yes, he is.
Let me say again, welcome to State Representative Kadeem Roberts. We're really happy that you can join us tonight. He represents the 137th, which, except for that little sliver that you just saw from Dominique, encompasses 06855, which is the general area for the ENNA. So he's really the go-to for almost everything here in this district. But I know that the two of you work closely together, as does the rest of our delegation, which is really good. And so if there's issues that we need addressed, we know that we can reach out to either or both. And Kadeem, if you just wanted to, I posted the bio here for you that came off the state website. Like you to highlight some stuff regarding your background and most recently what your committees are and anything else you'd like to share with the group in general.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Good evening. You just put me under pressure. She said he's the guy to go to. I love that. I love that. Well, now, welcome, guys. How you doing? I'm Kadeem Roberts, born and raised in Norwalk, Connecticut. So passion for me has been always public service to give back to my community. I come from low income housing. So when we talk about that, we talk about Section 8. We talk about being in low income housing until the age of 19 years of age. To getting a blessing to go to college, to becoming the face of my university. I went to a historical Black university, which is the first historical Black college down south, Virginia Union University. And at Virginia Union University, I was Mr. Virginia Union. So I would travel around and I was the face of my university, and I would basically travel and endorse my university and tell kids what it means to come to college. And I spoke in New Orleans one day, and the kid said, "You remind me of someone." And he said, "Who?" He said, "The mayor." I took that and ran with it. Would come back home, speak at a bunch of schools in Norwalk, to the, kids that we say need a lot of work, and try to embrace those kids. And in 2019, I ran my first race, and I became the youngest African American in the history of Norwalk to be the councilman. And ever since then, life has took a shift. I shared 2 years with Dominique on the council, and then after that, I went straight to the Capitol. Um, I'm young, I'm gifted, I'm vibrant. I feel like I'm powerful. So when I'm in these rooms with a lot of people, just trust and believe Norwalk does walk out the room, or people walk out the room knowing exactly who we are and what we stand for. At the Capitol currently, I sit on housing, education, and judiciary, but recently was appointed vice chair of housing in the state of Connecticut. So that is a big thing for me. As I told you guys, my background of housing and where I come from till now. And basically, education, I'm an educator at heart. Right now, currently, I'm the head of economic and development and family engagement at the #1 charter school in the state of Connecticut, Stanford Excellence. So I do that as well. But majority of the time, I'm really just outside in the neighborhoods that I was raised in. I spent 33 years. I'm still here, and from elementary all the way to high school. So things that concern me within Norwalk, and I mean, like you guys said, I've been in Norwalk my whole life, so I've seen the transformation of East Norwalk, even my side of town where I live, over next to like Dry Dock and Main Ave, like from the wake points being the YMCA. That's what I was raised in. There's no more YMCA. There's no community center. So Dominique will tell you I'm a big advocate. I put a bonding request in for another community center in Norwalk. You can't have over 100,000 people. That's like 70,000 kids, and they have nowhere to go. I'm a big proponent when it comes to stuff like that. And I know we're going to get into conversation tonight. I'm pretty sure because housing is a big thing, traffic is a big thing. I mean, you guys are on East Norwalk, so we understand. I sat back in a lot of conversations, and here, Kadeem, it took me 30, 40 minutes to get from one side of town to another side of town. And I understand that, and I'm always here for that. Like I said, I've seen the money go in. I'm a lawmaker, so you could put $2 million, and I'd say this, and Dominic could tell you, you could put $2 million, $3 million on the table for us at the Capitol. We're gonna bring it all back, and we're gonna work hard for that. So that's the big thing about us. This last session, we had completed the budget. We ended up bringing back an extra $5 million, working as a delegation, and that $5 million was divvied down into a bunch of departments. And I believe, and I got to make sure I'm not gonna quote this, but you guys had a big traffic study in East Norfolk. It was supposed to be done. There was a lot put on hold. So we could definitely, get back to that, touch base on that, because I met with a couple people in East Norwalk about, traffic studies, sidewalks, stuff like that. But I definitely am grateful for the opportunity to be here. I'm grateful that you guys reached out because this means a lot for us. We really at the Capitol, we're fighting, we're trying to bring back funds, we're creating legislation, but at the same time, we sometimes we're not disconnected with our city council, but you sometimes really truly don't get that full evidence or advice or whatever they have going on. You find out later. And I'll be honest with you guys, and you know how this goes. It's local, federal, state, whatever the case may be. There's always a disconnect. And I wouldn't lie to you guys.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest. So, but that's just a little bit of me.
Thank you so much. And I'll take this opportunity to say too that it's impressive, and I think this came up at the League of Women Voters forum. Was that last week or a couple of weeks ago, where I think the representatives for Norwalk now really are a credit to the community in terms of you guys being A, so young, and B, so new, but having these really major leadership positions now. And I really think that is a credit to the caliber of folks that we have representing us. But then I'll also say too is that we really want this to be a two-way street. I just really said just the other day, I said to someone on the council, I said, as you're considering things, I'd really like you kind of like to just have like a poster in front of you or something on your desk that says, what would ENNA think, or how would this impact them? And just feel free to pick up the phone or shoot us an email and just get some dialogue and some feedback that way. Because even though you represent the community, like you just said, sometimes you can be a little bit out of touch just what's going on the local level, and sometimes those disconnects. ENNA is one of the communities that kind of falls in the middle of that, and sometimes we're the epicenter. Well, right now we're the epicenter of a lot of things that are really beneficial to other people that we're bearing the brunt of, for years and years. And I know you guys are sympathetic with the transportation stuff because, as we like to say, we're the East Norwalk train station is really a blessing and a curse in our community. And what started out as a small neighborhood commuter, method of transportation is now looked at as this, major transportation hub, and is what's driving part of the governor's goal in not only doubling the populations, but focusing first on the areas that have the transit hubs. And in East Norwalk, we're really affected because of the train station, bus service, and the access not only to 95, but because we also have the connector right to Route 7. So we're really feeling all of that, in addition to the Yankee Doodle Bridge and the highway and all that good stuff. So anyway, at this point, what I wanted to do is just to ask you to talk about some of the what's called the major issues list for the 2025 legislative session. I posted that in an email out to all the people on the ENNA email list and asked them to take a look at it. I think when I reviewed it, I would say that the things that are of most interest happen to be the ones that revolve around housing, POD, affordable housing, and some of the stuff that's on there regarding traffic safety, which is a big concern. And I think there was one other one, but I think a lot of it has to do with the issue of combating homelessness, which is also tied in. And I thought you could also maybe talk about something that I thought was maybe not clear in there was the topic of homelessness, but also I didn't really see a lot being addressed that we classify as kind of aging in place and senior housing. Does that sound okay to talk about those things first? And
Absolutely.
whoever wants to jump in. Okay.
I'm
And
just.
we're going to leave some time for Q&A as well. I'll keep an eye on the clock here.
Yeah, no, I just go right in. I'll tackle what I think I could get to you guys. So basically, recently, homelessness has grown from 13 to 44% in the state of Connecticut in the past year. It's pretty bad. I led a press conference the other day, just basically asking the governor. They want about, I want to say $33.3 million to try to basically cure this. And this is not just for heating and cooling centers. This is more so for workers as well, so the prevention workers, and it's also for your actual nonprofits to give back. Homelessness has always been a big thing for me. They said currently in Fairfield County, it's about 52 people sleeping in their cars, and that's not. And for me, I'm new. I'm not new to it, but it's like when you guys, and I'm pretty sure everybody knows this. So when we're in Fairfield County, once I pass New Haven, places start to get a little bit foreign for me. So it's not something that I do know about these upper areas because my homelessness is different from upstate Connecticut's homelessness. People are intense. They're sleeping in the woods. So you kind of have to understand that as well when you're, especially like vice chair of housing, you're meeting with everybody, they come in. So that's a big thing right now. Homelessness is a big thing. Recently, me and Eleni Cabinet DeGrasse, we're going to start the homelessness caucus. They've never had one before. And I can give you guys information on that soon. Partnering with a lot of nonprofits, a major nonprofit in Norwalk, which is Homes with Hope, which is ran by Helen. And they have a bunch of, they're like your 211 liaison to the shelters, to the open door and stuff like that. So we deal with them one-to-one. And that's a cure right now. We're working on the homelessness, just trying to divvy out funding. Like you said, session just started, everyone. So I do want everyone to know there are no basic bills right now. They're all concepts. So if you see us raise anything at a committee meeting, they're concepts. So to be a title, an act concerning homelessness, there's really no language. It's more so just a concept. And you're saying, okay, this is going to tackle this. But in that bill, we're going to say, we want to make sure we get this amount of money to this proponent and what they're going to do with that money. That's how we formulate and create our legislation. And then we get it on the floor and then we, go back and forth. With housing this session, being that it's 130,000 people short of housing in the state of Connecticut or more, it's a priority bill. It's going to be bill number 500, and that's our actual housing bill this session, 5002. That's our priority bill. It's a priority for the speaker and the majority leader. And that bill, I'll be honest with you, it can be 5,000 things in a bill. I realize that housing, we go into our committee meetings and we raise our bills and it's like separate bills. And then the next thing you know, when you get on the floor, all those things that you passed in committee, they're all in one bill. So you're really it's pretty different. It's not like you're going one by one. And I don't know, sometimes I don't like that. I've voiced that already to the speaker as well. He was like, we understand that some things we do separately. But that bill, so my Fridays and Thursdays consist of me at the Capitol, every other day actually, or every day. And every 30 minutes, there's people within the housing community coming into a meeting. So I met with home builders, people that build this stuff in Connecticut, and they'll tell you about what they want. If they want like tax breaks on materials and how they want to put, legislation that help, kids learn about building and stuff like that. I've met with the mobile homes because we have a mobile home population in the state of Connecticut as well. And to see what they want to happen. I've met with fair rent commissions. I've met with the realtors. I've met with RAP, which is rental assistance programming within the state of Connecticut. I met with a lot of things when it comes to housing, tenants, landlords. And when I'm saying these type of things, I'm saying like the branch of that in Connecticut. So those corporations of Connecticut. But I could say that this session, there's like three big topics, and everybody, if you guys know, I'll tell you like the three big topics. The number one priority for Antonio Felipe, who is the chair, his number one priority is just cause, which is just cause evictions. We have it currently in the state of Connecticut, but it already bans no fault evictions for certain groups, including senior citizens and people with disabilities. The measure for his actual priority would expand it to those protections widely to include like, people, well, it would include 5 units or more, meaning that the landlord would have to provide reason of a lease violation or missed rent in order to evict someone. So that's a big thing for Rep. Felipe. And of course, and we would have two other big ones, work, live, ride, which is basically like what we know as in Norwalk, TOD, which is like transit oriented. Last year, we passed a study, and that study bill was House Bill 5390, I believe. And it would basically offer like towns would opt in to create transit oriented districts as a priority for certain state infrastructure funds. So basically, the idea is to build denser, walkable communities with housing and businesses where people can easily access public transportation. But I'll be honest, and this is just for me, guys, to tell you guys the truth. These things don't really work on a regular basis. You can't really get this through the finish line because, and if you were at the Women's League voters, I've said this, and I'll say it in front of everybody. 830G, work, live, ride, fair share. Some of these things will never work unless our surrounding towns opt into it. And majority of them, we have the majority in the capital, but majority of them don't want it because their towns don't want it. So I'll give you an example. Norwalk, we have reached this threshold of building, so we can use the work, live, ride, we can use fair share, we can use 830G, we can do whatever. But a surrounding town next door like New Canaan will not allow that to happen, so they won't vote on that bill. Or a surrounding town like Darien won't happen, so they won't vote on that bill. And the more you get up, they won't support that because some people, and I'm always blunt, some people worry about their positions more than their cities, more than their constituents. They worried about getting back in that seat more than allowing people to have housing. And I tell this in the press conference, you can Google this as well. If we're not giving people housing, they're next to knock on your door. That's crime. Simple as that. And I'm always straightforward with everybody. Or crime goes up. You're not giving no one housing. They might not have food. They might not have clothes. I said it in a press conference. The homelessness population keeps growing. I know someone that goes into a store and steals clothes just to get arrested so he can have heat at. This is a problem in the state of Connecticut. And I sit back and I look and I'm like, wait a minute. We have millionaires and billionaires here. This is an issue. So when we talk about housing, I'm gonna tell you, they put the right guy in the right position this year, because I don't know what happened a couple years before I was there, but they put the right guy in the right position, and I'm pushing forward, of course, with just cause with Rep. Felipe, but our dear senator and our majority leader, they're pushing for TOD, town to town, work, live, ride. We're trying to give access to housing within the state of Connecticut, but the big statement, and I will say this right now, is local control. And that is what you always need to understand. We cannot do this without any form of support from the localities and the municipalities. Local control is very real. And that's why I said some surrounding towns may not like this, but it's not a mandate. We want to work with you. But if we can do it right, then we'll do it right, but that's the biggest things this session. And I'm willing to go and be on the floor for 10, 15 hours debating if I have to. So, but that's the housing aspect. That's the homelessness aspect. You guys live in Norwalk, so you guys see it all. We're building housing everywhere, but it's not affordable. We got to be honest with one another. A studio for $3,200 is not affordable. I went to college to come back home to get my first apartment. Couldn't. Had to bust my tail to get right. It's a serious thing. So that's why people are forced to leave Connecticut. And that's a sad situation because I want to come back and give back to my community. But
No, I'll just jump in if it's okay with you, Kadeem, on a couple of things. So you just raised an important point because a lot of folks in Norwalk, and myself included, would not be as objectionable, let's say, to what the goals are of TOD and the increased density and doubling populations, if what we've seen and what's planned would actually be anything that would be considered affordable. Mm-hmm. And so when we say, doubling the population and housing, first of all, to house, you say you want to have, everyone should be able to afford to live in Norwalk, but you can't, are we talking 200,000 people or, how is that going to work? But the other thing is that so far it just seems that it's a mechanism with 10% workforce housing. We've all said it before and we'll say it again, that we don't consider workforce housing affordable housing. Mm-hmm. And for the folks that it's intended to, once you say, police and teachers and things, kind of our heads fly off because just read the annual salary reports for Norwalk every year. And, look at the top 500 salary earners and it would be, hard pressed to say someone making $250,000 a year can't afford to live in the city that they work in. But I also think, I get your point about kind of sharing the love here when it comes to housing. But in East Norwalk, we're not really feeling the love because we feel that the potential for density here isn't going to really keep up with what the impact is going to be on city services, on our schools, on traffic, on utilities and wastewater, etc. And so we just want you to know that this is not indicative of NIMBY, and it never was. It's really looking at the realities of when people say we need to increase housing. We have a shortage of 134,000 units of housing. We don't have 134,000 families on the street, so we're not quite sure, even where those numbers come from, and how much housing would we do we max out at?
No, I'm saying that's
I would say just cause
is
it, and I would say what I read about Just Cause is very good because it does provide more protection for renters and tenants. Because what happened is, in addition to artificially inflating all of the rents due to, developments like Bremen Crown and what's coming at Cemetery Street now, the influx that happened with COVID, when you look at Just Cause, what ended up happening there then is other landlords who had, say units in their, 2-family houses, they got rid of people who were there forever. Who are paying reasonable rents just for the purpose of saying, I can do what the market will bear now. And I think Just Cause is going to help to take care of some of that.
I agree. It's also a big thing in Norwalk, and I'm pretty sure you guys understand as well. So my friend almost closed on a house last week, and he lost his bid. He's like down to the last wire. Someone from New York paid cash. And that's a big thing right now. That's a big thing in Norwalk right now. Not even just Stanford. It's Norwalk. We are the 6th largest city, the fastest growing city, the most vibrant city. We got all the statistics that our mayor says. top livable city to live in. It's actually true. And now I'm starting to see school districts, school systems. I'm like, wow. But when he told me that story, I felt so bad for him. So that's another thing that we're working on. Just trying to see how we could mitigate that and how we could work on with stuff like that. We do have a time to own. So if you have grandkids or kids that want to buy their first homes, we just put in about $40 million more into that program, and that program is amazing. It's giving you $25,000 to $50,000 of your down payment, 5% closing fees. It's actually giving you something to work with, putting you in contact with the greatest lenders. So that's a big program that, to be honest with you, if you didn't work at the Capitol, you would never know. And now I'm working with Chief Chalford, and to tell them, like, listen, you got to come to Norwalk and do a whole program. I'm going to put a flyer together. I'll get City Hall open up. You need to start letting this information go, because every time you can Google it right now, it's probably at least $21 million up there. That's money for
Yeah,
people.
it would be nice to know how much of that's actually being used in Norwalk, because the other thing that most people agree on when we get into these debates is that, we would rather see a lot of these units that are coming now, that did come, are coming now, and you're going to be in the future. We really want to see ownership, whether that's in the form of a single family house or a duplex or condos or co-ops or something that allows somebody to own. And that's not an indictment of renters. I'll say to you, Kadeem, also public housing, myself, and Section 8 and apartment dweller for, a big chunk of my, into my adulthood even. And so, I totally get that, but I think that the reality is that there's not enough focus on home ownership and an opportunity to be able to own something, because it does build generational wealth. And, I just think it's better for the community.
Absolutely.
And
Dominique?
oh no, you go, Dean.
No, I'm good, Dean.
Oh,
I'm good.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, it's really good to hear, Diane, that you all are thinking this way about Just Cause, because so much of what I'm learning not being on housing is from community members that are unfortunately in the very, as I said, I have more single family homes in my district than not. It's like the majority, right? But for the folks that are renting, they are seeing that their rents are going up, that they're being turned around out of these apartments so that they can be renovated to then be put on the market for even more money. And this is a lot of the way people who want to live in Norwalk and own in Norwalk get their footing and save up for their down payment, like you said. So it's really good to hear that that's something that you think could be beneficial. I'll say too, in my district, which is a lot of, I think, there may be a lot of neighborhoods similar in 137th, where if it's single family homes, especially down by the beach, these are like intergenerational properties, right? And a lot of the young people are not in a position to take on their mortgage from their parents, right? The cost of living has just gone up extraordinarily. Wages aren't keeping up. And I have, fundamentally, I have a house 2 doors down that 10 years ago would have been going for half the price, right? So we've got folks who want to be empty nesters, and to your point, want to age in place, but everything's getting really exorbitant, or they want to downsize so that their bigger home can be available for a growing family with children. And both are getting, either it's too exorbitant for the young family with children to buy this house now, and or it's the housing stock that's smaller that's available for the seniors is also too exorbitant, so they can't afford to sell. So it's like then they're stuck with like this, with the reval, this, even if they've paid off their mortgage, right? This is a real societal issue that we're having, and housing is not just, to Kadeem's point, this is through the life course that we're seeing this manifest, right? So even in my district where we have majority single family homes, people are getting, unfortunately, locked out of what they thought a pathway would be for their American dream. And this is in Norwalk, because we've seen, housing prices and values double, which for those of us in our homes planning to stay, that's not bad. But if you want some mobility, it's not great.
Yeah. I'm so glad you just said something right now, Dominique. You just said, in reference to housing, you just used the term the American dream. And I hear that repeatedly, and I think it will probably always be the American dream. And that's kind of in contrast to where we have a lot of a different generation and a different perspective on saying, young people don't want to own homes anymore. And then this gets into, nobody's going to have a car anymore. And, we don't see that kind of the realities of that happening. Cars are not going to disappear, so we have to account for that, whether you live next to a train station or not. But I can tell you, 90% of the young people who are either in my family or that I come in contact with or that I'm are able to interact with or just observe on social media, the dream is still to own something, in whatever one of those formats we mentioned before. And I think that we need to understand that and accept it and not degrade that the American dream, of having the home. But I do see, you can see how complicated this is when we're kind of here talking realistically about what it means in a community to be able to say that we need more housing and not really be addressing all the things necessarily that go with supporting it, but then having the governor who says want to double the populations in the city. And by the way, we're focusing first on communities like East Norwalk. And so there does need to be more of a dialogue instead of just mandates. And I think people would be more agreeable and certainly not as hostile to the idea of having the discussions if they didn't feel like it was the mandate from Hartford coming down and that there's nothing we can do about it. And actually, in recent years, there really hasn't been anything that we can do about it. And people feel kind of helpless and sad, for the community. And go ahead, Dominique. I'm
No, I was
sorry.
just going to respond. I appreciate you saying that because, it's interesting now being on the other side of things. Like Kadeem said, there's local and there's state, and when we do really good work, we can work together. But as I know, when I was on the council, a lot of like when the East Norwalk TOD was being discussed, even to get an amendment on that through planning and zoning took a lot of political capital, right? And for some amenity points and green amenity points, and now that I'm on the other side of it, like Kadeem said, like I think Norwalk is seen as an example of how you can and should do this when you want to put people first, right? But a lot of times our barrier, I think, is these conversations are shut down even before we start because a lot of neighboring communities, and I represent one of the more progressive of these communities, but nonetheless, there were people who were very upset that I even voted for a study last time, right? Not just a study, right? They were
Right.
very upset. So, but I voted because
Yeah.
I knew that it was important to kind of figure this out. And also Norwalk should get credit for what it's done. Like we've been in rooms where we've said, hey, we've done everything right. So why are we gonna, let's give some credit to Norwalk and not have these things come down for Norwalk that don't work for Norwalk. We're saying
Agreed.
that as well.
Agreed. Yeah. So speaking of housing and populations and all that good stuff, do either one of you guys want to go ahead then and touch on education and in terms of kind of bringing home the money there? Because I don't really dabble too much in the Board of Ed budget, probably because my head would fly off. But I do know that it's a matter of, when I see these charts with just crazy inequity between what other communities get coming back for, every dollar that they send to Hartford. Now we're looking at a mandate for a growing population and not so much money coming back. What's being remedied there? And I see you shaking your head, Kadeem, if you want to grab that one. Because it's not going to go away.
Dom, help me with the ECS.
Yeah, I will. We'll together, Kadeem and I will get this one. Now I used to be on education with Kadeem, but I also know in terms of like he said, there's caucus priority bills. 5001, the one right before the housing bill, is for special education because it's become clear that there is a cause for great concern about how we fund special education in the state. And I think Norwalk, to me, is among the top three that could benefit from these changes. The rep, Miriam Khan, is leading this. She's a special education professional herself. But I've always felt that with education cost sharing formula, the ECS formula, we have not gotten our fair share, in my opinion, because we're not part of the formula. The formula does not properly reflect free and reduced lunch, multilingual learners, as well as high needs students, right? Those are our IEP students, special education students. So there's a lot of talk right now of amending that formula to reflect that. And I think that as long as we're vigilant about it, that means more education funding for Norwalk than we have gotten. When we sped up ECS, we got more money from the state last year for public education than I think we've ever gotten, right? Now that's a pretty high bar, but we have to keep at it because to your point, it's the Bridgeports and the Havens, and increasingly the Danburys, because they've been so underfunded, that are getting a lot of attention as they usually do, and even Hartford. And Stanford and Norwalk kind of get left behind because we have Rowayton. It skews the median income, and that affects us in the formula. And then one thing I'll say is the state comes back and says, well, you just need to raise your taxes because all these other places have mill rates that are higher and yours are not as high. So these are real barriers we face to bring home substantive additional money in addition to what we already brought home. But as I understand it, this education budget right now that's being discussed in the city, it's unfortunate that I think the ESSER cliffs, the ARPA money, what we're now seeing is that a lot of that was used on not one-time costs, and this is going to be a real problem. And so this is a real wicked problem we have to help fix, but by no means can state funding be the sole fix for this. We don't have, unfortunately, the formula really weighs high concentrations of poverty without the upper middle class and upper class neighborhoods that we have. And I'll kind of leave it at that. But I don't know if I set that up, Kadeem, in a way. You can say some other stuff.
You did great. You did great.
Right.
And for this session with and that's another thing I want everybody to know as well. The best part about this is in Fairfield County, and I think I said this to Damo the other day, we have all the leadership within the state of Connecticut right now, currently. So like your chair of education is from Fairfield Southport. Your vice chair is from Norwalk. You have public health, which is big in the state, from Fairfield and Bridgeport. So I want everybody to use us. And that's what we always tell everyone, because we're right there. But I talk to Jen Leeper all the time. Just anything that, I feel like is affecting, what's going on. I know I did have a conversation with Dr. Estrella the other day. I forgot where we were at. We were at a press conference or something. And no, it's a Martin Luther King Day, actually. And I said, "Oh, how you doing?" She's like, "I'm doing okay." And they're asking for a 9.7% increase or whatever the case may be. So this is my thing. And this is why I say to you guys again, the disconnect. Because had the state and the local had any form of communication to know, like, this is what they're saying, or this is what we need, then when we're up there trying to make sure the formula is correct and we give our money now to the actual city, we would know that, okay, they want 9.7 from the city, and that's going to offset from taxes, the schools, whatever. Okay, Kadeem and Dominique, they're up there, and the whole delegation's up there trying to bring back an extra this, because it'll offset you guys, and your 9.7 is really not 9.7. Your 9.7 is really like a 3.1 or less. And that's the biggest part about this. It's always been that thing, every year, even on the council, it's always, okay, the hate and love between the BOE and the council because it's budget cycle. But had I understood that, hey, listen, when I was on the council, I didn't know what they were doing up there. And then next thing you know, we start to see the teacher shortages that people said we were having. We're looking for more teachers. So I'm like, wait a minute, something's not adding up right. Oh no, we got the rest of the funding from the Capitol, because everybody knows June 4th is the last day. It's a long session. July 1st, everything goes into effect. Money starts clearing. Everybody starts getting their dividend. So it's a big thing when you really start to have them conversations. That's why I had a conversation with her. I said, what is this 9.7 increase for? And then by the time you start talking side conversations, everybody is around, and you start, listen, I'll set up a meeting and meet with you.
Let me ask you this, Kadeem, then, because we've mentioned this disconnect a couple of times. And what is like the protocol for how things get discussed between, our local government and our state representatives. How is that supposed to work? And, how could it be working better?
For us now, I think for me and Dominique and Lucy and Bob and Travis, I think now it's a lot easier because we all were on the council together. And like the people that are on the council now, we tend to have a relationship with them as well. Although our lives may be busy, I tend to check in. So like around this time, I definitely contact, hey, what's going on? What do you guys need? The biggest thing is we had, so an example is basically, we'll have a meeting with the mayor, say, hey, Mayor Brennan, what's going on? Or he'll reach out to us and tell us some stuff. But we just want to make sure we had that connection, that line of connection.
Gotcha. Yeah.
My biggest
Yeah,
thing right
I would think that that's like a regular connection there back and forth. But I think too, I think constituents kind of forget that they can call you folks and they can email you and say, I have this concern or this issue or an idea for, for a bill that you may want to introduce or something that you should look at. And, maybe open those, that dialogue more. So I want to get into some Q&A, but while you guys were talking about a couple of specific bills that are now, we're going to wind through, I want to remind folks, and I'll send out a link for this too, that the state of Connecticut, when you're looking at the Connecticut General Assembly site and you're looking at the legislative session, you can actually go in and look up bills based on topics or who introduced them. And what you can do then is you can, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you can still do this. You can actually follow a bill through legislation. So what you do is then you just sign up with your email and you can select any number of bills that you want to follow. So once any action is happening with that bill, it comes out of committee, it goes to, I can't really describe all the steps, but then it might go to something like come out of a joint committee. And then it might actually make it or could die there. Sometimes they just die. Sometimes they die the painful death they deserve, I got to tell you. So that's kind of good to see. But then, something you're following, you want to make sure it comes out of committee and gets the, the discussion that it should have and come to vote. People can actually follow these bills and you don't have to go in and look every day. You get an email that tells you whenever something has been updated or it's advancing. And I'll send a link to folks so that they know how to do that, especially with some of these controversial housing and transportation bills. I know people will be interested in that. And before we end tonight, I'm also going to put up your contact information too for folks to reach out. I'm sorry, I left these screens up here this whole time. Sorry about that. We're back to Dominique there. I think we had Kadeem up there the whole night.
It's all good. No worries.
Sorry about that. I just can't do two things at once, and I'm just glued to listening to you guys here. Okay, so just to recap for anybody that came in late. So Representative Kadeem Roberts is the 137th district, which you see here in white. It comprises almost all of 06855 and then goes north of the highway, way up and over and out. And then the 143rd is Representative Dominique Johnson. She represents north of the highway as well and all the way up to Cranberry. But she has, because of redistricting, she has a small portion of a Westport and then a sliver of East Norwalk. That's basically kind of the Pequot and Norton areas as well. And so between the two of them, we are covered there. Okay, so what I'd like to do, Charles, if you're ready.
Yes.
I don't know if there's anything in chat, but so what we do now is we will open up to some comments, any concerns, issues, questions, suggestions that folks want to share. So people who are online, you can use the raise your hand function. And if you're on the phone, you can use the *9 function, and we'll alternate back and forth between the two or go into chat.
Okay, we have
nothing is off the table. I will say this. I know both Kadeem and Dominique, and I know that they are welcome to discuss anything that you have on your mind. And if it's something that they can't address or answer, they can certainly get us to the right people.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
I'm big on like energy. I would love to know with everyone on this phone call, because you're basically your rep. Next to Sweet Ashley's, you guys got an apartment complex being built. Or I would love to hear people's input in that. That's like a big thing for me. If I can. Yes, no, don't like the idea. Bringing housing, a pond behind it. What is the structure? Because it's not too familiar. Once, like I said, it's local situations. I would love to hear people's input. Because you can't block it. It's gonna happen, but I would love to hear what your activation did. Letters, try to say no, stopped it, public hearings. I would love to know, because to me, that was the bank growing up. So I just, yeah.
Well, we'll open it up, but I can tell you that that particular development is the result of TOD and the rezoning for a village transit zone that was covered under part of the mandates to say increase the populations and do as much density as you possibly can around the transit districts. And in that particular parcel, though, I have to be honest with you, Kadeem, we all represented that back to the city as spot zoning, because that particular parcel, the way the zoning was written, it wouldn't have been allowed. And at the last minute, the zoning was rewritten with very specific specifications that could have only been for that parcel. And then it was tweaked a little bit to include 2 other possible parcels in East Norwalk, just so that they could avoid a legal battle of spot zoning. But what you have there with 1 Cemetery Street at Mill Pond is you have the worst example of what was thrust upon this community under the name of TOD and a village transit zone. Have you driven past there lately? Oop, you're on mute, hon.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, of course. Definitely around election day, around just the other day, actually. I'm lying. Just the other day, actually.
Okay. All right. So you can see, so when the zoning regulations were being rewritten and the city was degrading parking requirements and setbacks and height and density, it was really hard for people to visualize just what an impact that could have on a development that size. Now that the structure is going up, the community can see exactly what the city intended when they took away the setbacks and gave bonus amenity points for having some public amenities that increase the height and the density there.
Okay.
So I see some hands up, and I bet you they would like to answer your question.
I'm here for. Is that's Jim that drive the motorcycle?
Yeah.
Yes, that's him.
That's Jim. Jim, good evening.
You can unmute, Jim.
How y'all doing? Yeah, that's Cowboy Jim on the bike. So, no, I hope there's no kids on this meeting.
Yeah, we'll keep the expletives down. I'll
keep my Bronx down. It is horrible. It is absolutely horrible. And I pictured it, and I keep trying. I'm on Facebook. I just keep saying I'm trying. I don't even want to go past it anymore. It is, for the life of me, I don't know how anybody would even want to work or even live there. You're looking straight out into a cemetery, for one. The traffic. I saw something that was posted about kids on mopeds on Gregory Boulevard. I hear them. I know it is Anna and Donna. I know you're on here too. You hear them. The mopeds and the racing cars. And this is the wintertime. This is school time. What's it going to be like during the summer? I mean, that's the fear. And like Diane had said, There was an honest effort. People donated money. We had engineers that we hired. That Cemetery Street, all we needed was to scale back. Yeah, it was a bank. It was an empty lot with a single story building. But man, you got a plagiarized architecture that's built like a wall. And I just can't accept it. I can't. And I know I'm not alone. And why no one in the city heard or even acknowledged. And I know, Anna, you're on here too, and you're on the commission. I'm not going to point you out, but I know you're here. It was like deaf ears. And now we're hearing other things going on Van Zandt and Cottage Street. Cottage Street has got to be the smallest little street. It's nowhere near that would happen in the 143rd. No way. Street's actually even wider. Cottage Street, you have to drive down there. You could barely get one car down. Van Zandt, rush hour. I see the cars. They zip past my house on Old Saugatuck just to bypass 95 and get on Van Zandt and cut down Old Saugatuck. It's not good. And yeah, it's being built. We got to live with it. And I think a better position would be a little more humble on the developer, but that's not going to happen. So we're living with it, and it's really not happy. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, Diane. Thanks so much, and thanks, Kadeem. I've seen you speak before. I appreciate your input. And I agree with everything Jim is saying. I attended all 3 meetings or more than 3 meetings of the city where there was over 1,000 petitions asking them to scale back on this. You know, it's not that we didn't expect it to be developed, but to grant twice the amount of density there was really upsetting. One of my big questions is during the meetings, they indicated that the city was going to approve that and turn it into a one-way road, a one-way street around the cemetery, which, I mean, at this point, it flows beautifully into Gregory Boulevard if you're going north or south. And if they turn that into a one-way, do you have any information about if that's going to actually happen? I can't see how they're going to do it. Are they going to make it a stop sign? If that's the case, it's going to be, I mean, ridiculously, backed up there all summer long. Do you have any information on that, on the street development? No?
No, not me.
Yeah. I mean, I live pretty much across from Jim, kind of catty corner across from Old Saugatuck coming out, and I see constant traffic. Getting out of my driveway just now most mornings takes me, you know, a good 5 minutes sometimes to let all the traffic go in both directions. But one of the biggest insults, I think, to the community of East Norwalk when the town approved that, and we tried to get that known, but I guess they met their specific points and they were able to get their variances. I feel bad for any other community that they try to do this with, and how can we stop them from doing more around there? We've got a church across the street that may go out at some point in time. We've got the Masonic Lodge, which is for sale, although he's indicated he won't sell to a developer, but that's a good parcel for 3 pieces of 3 residential lots. It's been zoned. I really think you know, the big question for me is with regards to the street, how they're going to handle that going around the cemetery in the future. I hate what it looks like. As Jim, I cry whenever I go past there. It blocks out every bit of sun coming in from the pond, and it's ludicrous that, you know, they're giving the city $25,000 to build a deck on the pond with 2 parking spaces for public parking. Who's going to go back there? So I don't know where this came from, but it's such a disappointment for me. And I hear them hammering all day long now where I am. So
yeah.
If we could get some
in
updates
terms
on
of the
this,
street,
on
I
the
can-
DOT, it would be helpful.
Yeah.
Nah,
And-
that's what I'm gonna do tomorrow morning when I get to the Capitol, because I appreciate that, Anna, for telling me that.
In terms of the street, Donna, just so you know, we've gotten a variety of answers over the past year or so. One of the last responses we had on cemetery was that they were making the decision to leave it 2 lanes one way, the way that it is today.
Okay.
But I don't actually have that in writing, and I think it's probably subject to change. So I'm really not confident that that's going to that's going to stay that way.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, it's
and I
hard to
do think,
believe they'll keep their word on much of what they've said anyway.
yeah. And I think the other thing that people need to realize is that this was, maybe Kadeem would look at it as, kind of an unintended consequence of what the state would have supported as a good policy for TOD. So there's something, in theory, may be a good idea, because if you have people living right next to transit, and you're creating jobs next to transit, it sounds like a good idea. But then in practice, one cemetery is what we're ending up with. And it's likely that we're going to end up with more of those on East Avenue, and end up with what we warned about in the beginning, which is the canyonization of East Norwalk, with just these.
I feel like the
And they
big
still need cars. They still need cars to go anywhere. It's not, if they're trying to do it because they don't think people need cars, they still need cars to go to a grocery store or to get their hair cut or to, take their kids someplace. It's not a no car zone. That doesn't work. So I could spend a half hour on this, so I'm going to shut up now.
I feel like the big TOD project that I did see that's actually working right now in the city is right next to the downtown train station. It was a brownfield. We got some money from the state to actually build up over there. I want to say we named that street, when I was on the council, we named that street after Officer Cesar Ramirez, which is right across the street from the police station, right next. So the back of Side by Side, those apartments over there. And that's like legit, like work, live, ride. You come right out, you walk up the steps, you're right at the train station.
It's a city. That's a city environment. This is
Yeah.
a
No, I
huge
agree.
community.
I agree. That's why I'm asking these questions. I swear to God, that's why I agree. Because I always want to know, you got to ask these questions because, it's just, you hear about it and some people like it, some people don't like it, but I'm happy that I'm hearing about all of this. And definitely, Anna, thank you so much for, I could hopefully get to see what's going on with that one way, because it's kind of crazy if you go down, I'm going, you can't turn that to one way.
Yeah, we really should get a definitive answer on that, because that is part of Route 136. And everything they were looking at with that did have to go through the, through the DOT and the state. And I periodically check their records to see if they've updated anything, and there's nothing there too. So, Charles, let's go to the go in order of hands raised if we can.
Okay, well, Anna's on board here, so let's ask her to jump in.
Full disclosure, I'm a zoning commissioner for Norwalk, representing District C. Yeah, about the one-way, two-way is unofficial from whatever probably Diane heard that I saw on Facebook. We haven't heard anything official yet. And Kadeem, I would really love it, given that you represent this area, the more you can stay aware of what's going on with zoning in this part of East Norwalk, I think the better. There's a couple good Facebook groups where you can kind of track what's going on and see what's happening. I think at this point, I'm not sure how helpful it is to sort of relitigate Mill Pond. I think all of us on this call participated in about 14 hours of public hearings. For the record, I did not vote for it for various reasons. As a neighbor, I am looking forward to it. I think it'll be really nice. I do think it's a little taller than I would have preferred as you drive by it. And I wish that it had more affordable units at lower, deeper levels of affordability. But I'm glad that the parcel is getting developed into something beyond a big parking lot. Again, I didn't vote for it. And people in the neighborhood who are happy about it. At the same time, I think most new residential development, it's not for the neighbors that are already there. It's designed for the new people who are going to live there. And there's always a conflict there. But if it's possible to keep it in scale with the neighborhood and affordable to the neighborhood, I think that's always ideal.
I appreciate you, Anna. Appreciate you.
I really appreciate this conversation. I'm so sorry that I have to do this, but I have to go to the East Norwalk train station to make my pickup for the evening, because my partner's coming in from work. So I'm gonna have to say goodbye. But I'll connect with Kadeem about other folks in this conversation, just so I'm aware too, even though it's not my district. I appreciate you all so much.
Dominique, thank you so much. We appreciate you being on here with us, and I'll make sure everyone has your contact information as
Good.
well,
Great.
especially for the people who are around Norton, because lots of
Yeah.
stuff going on there, as you know,
Oh,
that
there
involves
sure
the
is.
state. Okay.
Oh, yes. So yes,
Thank you.
please
Thank
share my
you.
email freely. I'd love to hear from people. Thank you.
Thank you.
At all.
Okay. Kadeem, can you stay on for a little bit, answer some
Yeah.
questions?
I'm here, of course. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, next up we have Becca. Hi, Becca.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Becca.
Kadeem, my overall hot take is I'm a yes on Mill Pond because I bought my house on Emerson so that I could walk to that train station and go to work in New York for literally that reason. So it stands to reason to me that other people might also be looking for that level of amenity at some form of affordability. I'm also a bike walk commissioner, and what I've heard from people is, from a coworker who lives on the pond, that they were looking for small adjustments, one floor less, a little less parking, stuff like that. And I'm totally amenable to that. I'm a yes on housing. I'm with you. I'm a yes on housing. People need places to live. People should be able to live here. People should be able to do what they do, raise families, send their kids to school, and they should be able to do it safely and maybe with less car than the previous generation did. Not no car, but less car. So the things I would love to talk to you about or flag for you about Mill Pond are when I walk from Emerson to the train station, I'm looking at Google Maps, I have to make 4 crossings, only one of which has a painted, well-lit crosswalk. And I do this, I'm a theater stagehand, I work on Broadway shows, so I'm doing this after 11 p.m. a lot of the time. Right now, from the Mill Pond site to cross East Avenue to Sweet Ashley's, there's not a safe crosswalk. It's really poorly lit. And then the big concern, because you mentioned in the whole work, live, ride idea, is work. And I think that we're kind of missing the work part, because obviously there's get to the train, take the train to work, which is great. But what about local businesses? Somebody before brought up a grocery store. How do we encourage a grocery store to come to this area? Because it's something we desperately need. And that would allow people to really live here and be able to meet their needs, go to church, go to the train, go to South Norwalk, take the bus, do all that, maybe do it without using a car that much of the time, but without incentive for people to open businesses. Like, for example, I think that this neighborhood is so ripe for a coffee shop, and there's an open spot where Norwalk Pizza and Pasta used to be on East Avenue that I would love it if somebody turned into a coffee shop. I think they would make bank from train commuters. So I'm hoping that there can be some focus on the pro-business aspect of work, live, ride, the live, ride part as far as making sure that these amenities exist so that people need fewer cars, which would alleviate some of the traffic concerns. Part of that is bus service, and I know that NTD ahead drops on August 10th, and hopefully in time for some of us to take the bus to the beach concerts and not have to drive. And then my last thing that I want to highlight is that the current new design for the East Norwalk train station does not have a shelter. And if people are going to walk to that train station and wait outside for multiple minutes when it is under 20 degrees, as I will be doing tomorrow morning at 6 a.m., it would be really, really great if there was somewhere indoors to wait. And if that can be pushed at the state DOT or whoever needs to be pushed that from the Walk Bridge project. Because again, if you want people not sitting in their cars idling, then you gotta make it pleasant for us out there. Thank you for all you do.
No, I thank you so much. Becca, thank you so much. Like I said, I've been here my whole life, so that side of town I don't even know if you guys remember Jimmy's. It used to be the corner store right there. You get the breakfast, bacon, egg, and cheese in the morning. My mom been a preschool teacher for 45 years in Norwalk. So the preschool was there. But yeah, no, I definitely agree, especially where you said no piece of pasta was a nice coffee shop, a grocery store. Yeah, it used to be a fish market right there in the corner too. We used to go get the fish from. So it's definitely changed a lot. So I definitely thank you so much. I wrote down Emerson. You said Emerson. Becca, please, one more time. The crosswalk from Emerson to Mill Pond. Say it one more time.
And you know what, Kadeem, let me jump in on that one too, because Becca may not be aware though, but as part of the plans that accompanied at the same time as Mill Pond was being approved, was also some infrastructure improvements that are tied in with the city and the walk bridge. It's kind of like 3 or 4 different things going on in that area. There are planned crosswalks at all of the walk areas there. So with striped crosswalks and appropriate signage. That's part of the road improvements that come up East Avenue and then cross Cemetery and go over to Gregory. And there's also road improvements that are being planned for Gregory Boulevard and potentially some changes to Gregory Boulevard to make it one way going the other way coming around the park that's there in front of the little strip mall, but the actual crosswalk improvements are a part of the roadway improvements that are going to be there.
That
And in
is
terms of
super great
a
to hear,
grocery store
because
and-
now I can stop putting in the click and request over and over again.
Yeah, exactly.
I have put in
exactly.
these
But
click and requests multiple times, and they've
Yeah.
just been closed down without comment. And if I'd gotten a comment that says, this
Yeah,
is coming with
exactly,
walk
yeah.
bridge money,
yeah. And
Like,
and for
that
that
would be
one
great.
too, it's a collaboration between the state and the city on those improvements being done there. I don't know if the developer's kicking in anything, but doubtful. But you can always write into Jim Travers in transportation mobility and parking, or to Vanessa in Public Works, and they'll be able to give you an update on that. In terms of that $25,000 so for the amenity of a deck that would go out into Mill Pond. Just so you're aware, ENNA was already told by DEEP that they would never approve that from the environmental point of view. The city built into the contract, though, that if for some reason the city didn't build that little pier, that the money then would revert back to the developer and they just keep the money. Whereas ENNA and the community asked them to then take the 25,000 and donate it into local nonprofits like Marvin, the East Norwalk Library. We have a number of great nonprofits over here, but the city, I'm not sure if Anna's on this still, but they refused to even do that. And I think they should be called out for that. There's no reason why that money should go back to the developer, especially for something where it's easy for them to say, we'll give you $25,000 to build this when they already knew that it would never be approved to be built. In terms of the businesses, it's kind of a catch-22. To get some businesses into a community, they really need the demographics that are going to support having the business. And so then you kind of need more people to have the business, and that kind of goes hand in hand. But I also think that the reason why we don't have a bakery and we don't have some of the businesses that we've had before, it really is directly related to the absentee landlords that own those properties. And I can only say, I can't say much more on here, but I can say that ENNA is fairly active in looking at getting a small, locally owned grocer in East Norwalk proper.
That would be so
So,
super. I know a lot of it.
Fingers
I
crossed.
haven't been here. I haven't been here very long. I just bought my house in 2021, but
Uh-huh.
and I know that
Yeah.
that there was some stuff in those lots behind Giant Laundry before the fire, and it's been tough to
Right.
just get that online again.
Yeah.
But just, from as far as the state legislature is concerned, anything that is, like making loans available to people who say, I want to open a business in my community that would train people who are going to move here because there's apartments here. Like, I would hope that that's going to make a compelling case.
And another reason why that's important too is when you're creating any kind of jobs like that. One of the things that we were hoping would happen with TOD is not that you're just building housing for someone to get on a train and leave Norwalk to go to the city to work, but that we would have really good paying jobs within East Norwalk for Norwalk residents, but perhaps you'd have somebody from, say, Bridgeport or New Haven who takes the train, gets off in East Norwalk, and they're they're working here in the community. And so that's a part of TOD that the state seems to always forget, when they're talking about the equation of commuters.
Couldn't agree more.
Okay,
We need room for both.
Exactly. Agreed. Here's some contact information for both Representative Roberts and Johnson. And as we said before, Kadeem really represents the bulk of the 06855 area. So he's kind of our go-to guy. And even if it's something unrelated to committees that he actually serves on, I know he's happy to pass things along and help with whatever the topic might be there.
Yes, please, please, if you can, anybody, I'll put my email up here and my contacts here. If you guys have anything that you want to see at the state level, please let us know. It doesn't matter if I'm not on that committee. Like I said, I work a lot closely with everybody on other committees. So deeply appreciate you guys if you guys want to reach out about stuff like that. This is a long session, so we're in session for the next 6 months. So just want you guys to know, if you say, oh, like Diane said it, she was like, yeah, bills actually get updated day by day, week by week. They'll change something tomorrow, add something the next day, take that out, so it goes in a process. So please let me know. I think that I tell everybody this all the time. What you want to get in the state of Connecticut, you want to get it now this session because it's a long session. So.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And I'll also say then, Kadeem, too, because it's almost impossible for me to keep up with everything local and state. If you're seeing a bill come through that you think is going to directly impact Norwalk, and especially East Norwalk, we would really appreciate it if you just shoot me an email and say, hey, you may want to keep an eye on this one as it makes the rounds there.
Hello.
That would be great.
Anybody hear me? Hello.
Yep, Jim, you're on. Go ahead.
All right. I'm trying to figure out which screen. I'm using my phone because my laptop's down. Is there any way of, and this may be just shooting a long shot, is there any way that there could be a moratorium on building at least in Norwalk or in East Norwalk, just to let us breathe a little bit or slow it down? We talk about infrastructure, the water, the electric. Nobody is even talking about wireless. I mean, wireless is being taxed too, but nobody talks about that. The drainage, etc. Besides the traffic, maybe just to give us a year or 2 years to kind of breathe and let these greedy developers take a back seat a little bit. Listen to us. The East Norwalk is different. We're always going to have traffic because we have the beach. Nobody's mentioning that. And I know Becca, whatever your name is, you're for it, and I appreciate that too. That's what makes us great. We have different opinions, but East Norwalk is a destination point. It reminds me, and again, I revert back to my Bronx days of City Island. City Island is a one-way in, one-way out peninsula, and summer months and the heights of the seasons, East Norwalk is very similar to that. And our streets are very narrow. East Avenue is a narrow street to handle traffic. Maybe we just need a time to breathe.
Jim, I like that, Jim. I'm gonna put that in the notes now, and then I would definitely say, like, if they say a moratorium at East Norwalk, they probably gonna say like everybody else got to get that same thing. But I mean, I definitely, me, Jim. It ain't nothing for me going up there and asking.
No, I do appreciate it.
Ain't no
really
problem.
do.
Yeah, and I
really
think,
do.
And I think, Jim, it's worthwhile to have that conversation, locally as well, with Kadeem addressing it too, because, in the past we've asked for at least a moratorium on special permits, which kill us, just to say, give us a breather, until we can really examine, how, and now, especially now that One Cemetery Street is going up and now everybody can see, just how monstrous that thing is. Maybe it's a good time to go back and say, now we need to really step back and re-examine how we wrote these and make sure we're not setting up for a whole community like this. Nadeem, I'll point something else out to you too. A lot of what happens in East Norwalk, we find is really kind of unfair compared to other communities. And it really has become an environmental justice point with us, in terms of the highway and the walk bridge and TOD, what it's doing to our community environmentally, with things like noise and light and air pollution are really all impacting us. And it's not fair because, except for pockets of East Norwalk, this is not a very affluent community. if you look at what's being done here with the blessing of the state compared to, the big comparison would be Old Greenwich. Now, if you haven't been to Old Greenwich, I encourage you to take a ride because Old Greenwich is very similar to East Norwalk. It's got basically a one-way road into a major beach, Todd's Point. It has the railroad station that's right there with an overpass. So you go underneath the railroad bridge, just like East Norwalk. When you go under that, you come into a small little village of Old Greenwich with little shops and boutiques and a bank, and it's got a firehouse just like we do. So there's a lot of similarities. And I can tell you that that community would never allow what's being done to East Norwalk to be done there. And the state of Connecticut wouldn't dare. And even to the point of they didn't lower the road in Old Greenwich for tractor trailers to get through there, and they have as many stores as we do. They even have a supermarket there still, I believe.
Yeah, it's still there. I used
so
to work.
We're just saying, why are we being treated so unfairly when places like Old Greenwich aren't being subjected to this overdevelopment and tractor trailers and, widening roads and having more people come through? Just a comment.
Appreciate that. I used to work for the town of Greenwich for like 5 years, so definitely understand.
Okay, yep. So you know what I'm
Yes,
talking about there.
Absolutely. Okay. Now I appreciate you guys. I appreciate having a conversation with you guys and definitely hearing, what you guys have going on.
Thank you so much. We really, really appreciate you coming and spending and taking some extra time to answer questions and making yourself available. And don't be a stranger. We meet, we're off schedule this month and next month because of the two holidays. But we're always the third Monday of the month. And if you're not on our email list, you can hop on yourself, or I can put you on there.
Please.
Yeah, I'll get you on there, and just feel free. You're always welcome at our meetings. And if there's a topic at the state that could impact us, just say, what would ENNA think, and just reach out. We'll tell you.
Okay, thank
what
you.
we think. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. You guys have a good night.
You're welcome to stay on. And everyone, before I adjourn, I just want to know that I was going to go over a couple of these planning and zoning things that came up, but you don't have to feel free to stay on. You can hop off if you want, but just wanted to let you know about anybody who's staying on the former Jimmy's Deli. There is now an application before planning and zoning to put in a 22 unit 3.5 story complex there between Jimmy's Deli and Rowan Street. The reason why they can do that many units is because of the bonus amenities, the public amenity points that planning and zoning allowed Steve Kleppen to develop to. I don't have to sing that song again, but anyway. I just wanted to give you an idea of how this works. So now this fellow, if he actually completes his application and everything, he can put in 22 units there just by virtue of having some wider sidewalks, which, by the way, is a requirement in the city now anyway. Public art, which could be anything. A public bike rack, like who cares? A public bike repair station. Both of these I don't believe would be visible from the road, so they're not public amenities anyway. A couple of EV chargers for their own tenants, a small rain garden with some art, a pollinator habitat of I think 100 square feet or so. Again, I don't think it's visible to the public, which means it's not a public amenity. And the passive house zero carbon building. As it stands right now with zoning, I met with Brian Baker today. This is called an incomplete application because they haven't filed all the documents that are needed even for staff to do a review on it. And I don't know what happened to, I thought I put a picture of it here, but I guess I didn't. I will post a picture. I can tell you it's a monstrosity with virtually no setbacks, and it takes up that whole parcel. Right out to Rowan, right out to Van Zant, right over to the church. lot and then over to the other buildings on the right-hand side of it. So that's on our watch list. Also, the owner of this property has not been a good actor in terms of in the community. He does live in Norwalk, but at one time he was storing a boat over there, which was unsightly and illegal. For almost a year now, he's had illegal construction equipment on that site, and he's finally going to be before the zoning enforcement hearing officer this Wednesday, and I'll be appearing at that. And then I guess I didn't have the Cottage Street thing up here, but anyway, Cottage Street is what I talked about earlier. That's going to be going from a 2-family to a 4-family, and going from 2.5 stories to 3.5 stories at 16 Cottage Street. We have that on our watch list as well. Okay, folks. The next meeting is February 24th. It's on the 4th Monday again due to President's weekend. We'll try to get back on, when I say we, I mean me. I'll try to get back on the ball of getting emails out on a more timely basis to everyone and keep you informed. If there's a particular topic, concern, a suggestion you have, you can always email into us, please, at our email, which is info@eastnorwalk.org. And encourage all of your neighbors to sign up for our emails, because that's a pretty good way of keeping informed there.